Outdoors with Archie Phillips' weekly outdoor television series is now available on video cassette, with all the excitement, adventure, and educational techniques that has made this series so popular, with topics you can't find with most outdoor series.
Here he comes, Bubba. Golly, got one. Look at that thing go. Oh, there's two. There's two up there. There goes one. There's another one up there. There's one in this tree. There's one. Got him? Oh, look at there. What a catfish.
Look at two in one shot.
Oh, look at that. Now, folks, I'm gonna tell you something. We're getting this thing started off with Jerry Simmons, and probably one of the greatest bow hunters in America. Now, there you see it. Shot two with one shot. Well, you know, down here in Demopolis, you're kind of way away from any big cities. Oh, look out, look out, look out.
Oh, yeah,
that's good. That's a good one there. Whew. Saw him move. Did you? Look at that. Don't break that pole, Randy. Look. Wow, look at that thing. Look at that. Look at that thing. Look at that. Holy mackerel, what a fish. Yeah. Come around the backside. Look out, look out, look out, look out, look out. Get him, Howard, you better get him, Craig. He's gonna get away. You better get him, Greg. You better get him, get him, get him. He's gonna go, go.
Escape into the great outdoors with Outdoors with Archie Phillips. Available at video stores nationwide.
Well, I like going hunting, just me, my hound, and my gun. Chasing them deer, rabbit, and squirrel, now that's my kind of fun. I like going fishing too, I'll go on any whim, looking for the big bass, the poppy, and the brim. Just give me a wide open field to walk through. Give me an ocean so deep. I want to ride the longest river in the world, or maybe climb the highest mountain peak. Like going down to the fishing hole, buddies and me and my old cane pole. Bait them hooks and wet them lines, it's a life I love so fine. It's almost supper time, you'd think the world was mine.
And now for today's outdoor adventure, here's Archie Phillips.
Well, folks, today we've got a show for you about how the early Indians, or early man that was wandering around on this planet, utilized the white-tailed deer and all the tools that he made from the white-tailed deer and the different ways he used him, as well as the Flint tools, handmade tools. And some of these came right off of Indian sites, and we're going to show you how they utilized these tools, the leg bones and the antlers, and making knives out of the blades and little small pieces of flint, which was what they did most of their skinning with, how they made their arrowheads, and all types of things that the Indians did. And we're down at McGowan Hunting Club in York, Alabama, with my good buddy Billy Moore here, and the president of the club, Mr. Joe Country, and they're gonna assist me in this little deer demonstration here. And so let's get us some tools to work with, fellas.
Okay.
Well, folks, to have good tools, the Indians knew which was the best rock. The very best rock is this black Dover flint. And this was in limestone when the earth was cooling down, and it was right in the center. And as the water eroded the limestone away, this came out, and you find it around on the ground, and you also find it in stream beds. And when you bust it, it's like glass, and it'll fracture off, and it's predictable how it'll break. This is some Bangor flint. It's a little browner, got more impurities, and what we're gonna do, we just want to hit it a lick and make us some chips come off of it. And these little old chips will be just razor sharp. And here's one right here. And I got, we've already chipped this off some. Y'all boys got to get an idea of, there's a real sharp. And you can cut yourself real bad with them. So I busted them off, and we're going to show you how they skin these deers with a flint. And now also, they utilize knives like this also, and they just used them to make their cuts in their meat like that right there. We'll use that one momentarily, but Fellas, just take your sharp flint there and just cut into them, and then you can just work that hide right on off with those flints. Now these are surgically sharp.
I didn't know I was so good with this.
Yeah, Joe, you're doing a good job. Now you skinned. How many deer's been skinned out of this shed, you reckon?
Oh, 1,000.
At least. Y'all tell us about your club. How long y'all had this club?
This is our 30th year, Archie.
30th year. All right, now while they're doing that, I want to show you another utilization of the deer. Right here on the ulnar bone, which is this part right here, is the front elbow of the deer. This bone right here sets right in there like that. This was one of the most used bones in the deer for this reason. It's real hard. After a deer gets over 3 years old, he will, this will get real hard, and most of the time they would just simply sharpen this, and it became a tool and all to punch in their buckskin clothes. It also, they would shorten it a little more, and it would be utilized to flint knap, which means that after you get an arrowhead coming to you, you can actually resharpen the edge by taking this ulnar, and you can actually make a little saw blade out of it. And folks, on the back of a deer, one of the most important of all items they had was the sinew. That is the back leaders from here to the shoulder, which is right here. And there's a strip in there about 1.5 inches long, and we're gonna go down to it and then take it out of there. And then they would dry it, ruffle it in their hands like that, and you would see little threads look like monofilament line. They used that to haft all of their arrowheads and anything else they needed to tie. They used this part of the deer. All right, this is a piece of sinew that come out of one we just skinned a while ago. There you see it's about 1 inch wide and about max 18 inches long. And there'll probably be 50 strands, maybe 100 in that one sinew that they used. They had to have something strong to tie with. This is it right here. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go up under the skin and I'm gonna pull this out. Now the finest meat that you ever want to eat in a deer is right under this thing. This is the part you don't eat right here. So what I'm gonna do is just take it out all the way down, and then we'll take the tenderloin right out from under it. There it is, right there, running long ways. You got your best eating in the whole deer. You reckon them Indians knew this was the best, Billy?
The tongue was the best for them.
Yeah. All right, see it coming off now? There's the sinew right there. And then you simply take it and set it on a flat surface and work the rest of the meat on off of it, just like that right there. And then just lay it air dry. And that was the bindings that man used for over 10,000 years right there. Of course, they took the back straps out of buffalo, elk, and all the other animals also. But this is a white-tailed deer, and it was probably utilized as much as any that we had. And that's the way the sinew comes out. Another thing that was utilized was this front leg right here. And this is what's called the cannon bone of the deer. And the importance of this bone is it's one of the hardest bones in the deer, right there. Fish hooks. The best fish hook in the world is made from this knuckle right here. That's where that bone goes, right in there. Well, folks, here is the cannon bone at the top, and it goes down into the toe bones of the deer. Now look right over here. They took this bone right here and they abraded both sides of it, and there you see what it looks like. Then they go in and take the rest of the bone out of the place, and there you see a fish hook. And you asked, how did they do it? This little graver stone, there's the tip of it. They would take that, lay it on the cannon bone, and go back and forth till they actually cut this bone with this stone tool right here. And Tony, you know a little bit about some of this stuff. This is some of the other tools they use to work bone with too.
You can see, Archie, where they started with this graver spur, as you pointed out, and they just literally sliced a section right out of the middle of that toe bone. And once they got the section cut out to where it was about 1/4 of an inch thick, then they would come and cut it across at this point, cut it at this point, and then you'd have the shape of a fish hook, and then they would come along with various grinding type stones and grind the thing down until they got it polished to the point where they could put a sinew line on it and it was ready to use for fishing.
There you go.
That was one way in which they made the fish hooks. Archie, there was another way in which the Indians made a fish hook. They took a piece of the side of this cannon or long leg bone of the deer, and they actually cut a shape out of it that was just like the shape of a fish hook. The reason that they liked to use this piece of bone was because this is the hard outer shell here of the bone, and it's very strong, and it gave them a good, solid working hook. When we go to the case below to look at some examples, you'll see that most of the ones that were made out of this cannon bone were made very heavy duty and large and were obviously used for real large fish. If you look down in the case below here, you'll see some examples of both kinds of hooks. In this case right here, these ones with a real wide, flat bottom to them are the ones that are made out of the piece of the side of the cannon bone. This one, and this one. These smaller hooks in the case were made from the toe bones like you were talking about. Some of these, as you can see, they're quite old fish hooks, and some of the parts are missing. Right up in the case a little bit above it here, there's a very good example of a nice big hook that's made out of a piece of the cannon bone. You can see it's quite a heavy-duty hook, and that hook is about 3 or 4 inches long.
And what age is that hook, Tony?
We have a real problem telling with things that come out of the river. They all develop what we call a river patina in a relatively short period of time. Now, by short period of time, I mean several hundred years. So it's really hard to say.
You can't nail that down, right?
There was a civilization on an island here in a river island in Florida called Tick Island, and we'll look at a lot of shell and bone artifacts from there in a minute. And we do know that the time of occupation for Tick Island ran from about 3000 BC up to 1700. So it was a long span of occupation.
Now the cannon bone, Tony, right in the very bottom here, what were those used for right there?
What those are is they're daggers made out of the bone, and as you can see, they cut across the bone and ground it away at an angle, and it makes quite a formidable weapon. That thing is about 8 or 9 inches long. It's honed down to a very sharp point on one end, and a lot of them are also drilled at the top end where they had a suspension thong and it hung from their belt. There's a book on the the New World people, and it has a lot of illustrations in it by the French artist Lemoyne. And in those illustrations, you'll see pictures of Indians with these cannon bone daggers actually hanging from their belt. Those illustrations were done in about 1675. So that's another case of where they made a very formidable weapon out of using the bone completely.
All right, one other thing I want to talk about too, of course, this, the cannon bone also was used when they would cut it off. This is a buffalo bone I'm holding in my hand, but they also used that in their hide preparing to get that first membrane off, and then to turn it over and get the hair off the other side. So they would just simply take this bone and whack it off there, bevel it back, and use it for in their making their skins and hides for clothing.
Yeah, you can see on that one specimen in your hand, this one was used for hair removal, and it has little notches cut in the end of it to help catch on the hairs and de-hair a hide in the tanning process.
Now, folks, this is the ulnar bone, and it's sitting right up on top of the radius. This was a very, very useful bone for the Indians. These bones have been found all over the country, and they turn them into awls. They're very strong and very sharp, and they also use them to chip their arrowheads with. All of these are very, very old. And then the radius here is one that was made as an awl right off of the end of the bone. But they had another use for this setup right here. They would simply leave this like it was, sharpen the front edge, and they would turn it down, and they would use it as a tanning tool and to knock the hair off of the deer hides and actually sharpen it, use it to help go over the hide to thin it down to get it into buckskin.
Archie, another interesting artifact made out of bone is this bone harpoon point, which was attached to the end of a spear and used to spear fish. As you can see, it was barbed, and it made quite an effective fish spear.
That's beautiful.
These other small bones in the case immediately behind it, these were used by the Paleo Indians, and these were little pieces of bone that were laced onto either side of a paleo point in the grooves, and they helped in the hafting process to keep the point attached onto its foreshaft. These are very, very old. They date back to the Paleo period, which is about 8 to 10,000 BC.
Goodness gracious alive. Well, Tony, that's some real interesting things there, and they just used every part and type and thing it's ever was.
They certainly did, Archie, and before we leave, one more interesting thing that we need to look at was an interesting use that the Indians made of deer antler, and we'll go through this quite quickly. This is a typical piece of antler that was salvaged from an Indian site. Here you can see that this piece of antler now has been cut and made shorter. What the Indians are going for here eventually is a piece of antler about as long as this object in my hand. Then they wedge-shaped the end of it, hollowed the core out of it on both ends, and what they had here was a stylus or chuck. Then they would put pine pitch in here. They would remove the teeth from the sawfish bill and fix them in the pine pitch in the end of this stylus or chuck. Afterwards, they cut a limb at a 45-degree angle that fit in the end here, and that held this thing so that it could be used as a punch. And they went along punching the body of the various braves like this for scarification or tattooing, which was quite prevalent in pictures we see that were taken, illustrations drawn by the first white people to arrive on this continent. Scarification, this is a tattooing stylus used by the Indians and made out of a piece of deer antler. This is a nice example here, Archie, of a very large spear point made from the cannon bone. You can see the groove that identifies the bone. Interestingly enough, this piece still has some of the pitch or asphaltum and a piece of the wooden shaft from the old spear remaining fixed in the end of it. The next example we have here is just an incredible piece. This is some type of a dagger, I guess, and it's made out of a bird bone. You can see that it's almost a foot long. It's the largest one that I've ever seen, and it has a slight bit of incising running all the way around the middle of it. Quite an interesting piece. This is a nice example of a point that's made from an antler tip. You can see that it's been hollowed out to receive the socketed end of the shaft and polished down to quite a sharp point and a really good hard finish, which is going to make it a durable point, and it'll stand up under a lot of, abuse and give them good wear. And the last example we have is a piece of deer bone that's been made into a smaller type point. You can see
these were actually what they used for their atlatl points.
These are what they use for atlatl points or for large thrusting spears that were held by hand.
Like the sinew that was taken out of the back of the deer. Now you talking about bow hunters in modern day. This bow here goes back hundreds of years. This is an authentic bow from out in the West. And the back strap or sinew, this is Osage orange wood here, generally what they made them out of, or sometimes they used different hardwoods that we have here and in the West. There is the sinew laid right down the whole back of this bow. And ever so often, a band of sinew is tied around this part. This ridge running up and down here is the very top of the backbone of the deer. There's a layer of sinew runs down there, and it is also bound in here with the bow. So it was not uncommon for some of the well-made sinew-backed bows to have a 50, 55-pound pull. Now the rawhide here bound it on the end, and this was braided sinew, which was the bowstring that was used by the early Indians. Now, Tony, we have the arrows, and these all are so light they feel like they're made out of some kind of the weeds like what grows in the southeast, but this is a very interesting group of arrows here. If you look real close, you can see the sinew binding where the arrowheads are put together, and they would use hide glue or a type of asphalt to lock them in there. And Tony, right under the bow here is the most fantastic thing I believe I've ever seen.
Well, Archie, when you discuss Indians with them, they immediately think of the bow and arrow. And what they don't realize is that the North American Indian has been here since at least 10,000 BC. And after he graduated beyond using thrusting spears, then he began to use an item that was known as an atlatl. And what an atlatl is an extension of the arm, and it's used to cast spears. This is an exquisite example of a Great Basin atlatl. This is called an atlatl board because it's flat. The ones that they used in the East, as best we know, were round. As you can see, on one end of it here, there's a groove in the wood. The camera's picking it up now. And right at the very end of that groove, right there under my finger, is a little dimple. And in that dimple, the end of the shaft that held the atlatl spear fitted right into the dimple, just like you see it there, and that held it. And then, of course, the spear laid right across the top of the atlatl. Then, on the other end of it, there's a thonged handle that the Indian would stick his thumb right through that thong that you see there and grasp it right around the handle of the implement to use it as a throwing stick.
And all of this binding in there is sinew.
All of the binding is sinew, and then there's also an interesting feature you can see on the bottom. There is the atlatl weight, or in the East what we call banner stone, which was strapped right to the spear thrower itself. Our supposition is that these were counterbalance weights used to offset the weight of the spear, but there again, no one interviewed a prehistoric Indian, so we're not sure. Moving along to the other end of the shaft, as you see here, the shaft we have is broken. We have the base end of it, which fitted into the back of the spear thrower. Then we have a section missing out of the middle, and this is the fore end of the main shaft. These main shafts were actually harder for the Indians to make than the little stone point that went on the end of it. So the stone point was mounted on a separate detachable piece of wood known as a foreshaft. So the foreshaft was fitted into the main shaft of the atlatl like that. Then the whole piece was mounted on top of the spear thrower. When the Indian held it, his two fingers stuck up, his thumb went through the loop, and his two fingers stuck up to support the spear so it didn't fall off. He cast the spear in a throwing motion, and when it struck the animal, the foreshaft would release and the main dart shaft would fall back on the ground. Then the Indian could run up, grab that shaft, put another foreshaft in it, and he was ready to go again.
Early man utilized all the animals in his kingdom there, and one that he particularly used an awful lot of was the white-tailed deer. The horns from the white-tailed deer and pieces of them were used to flint knap these beautiful arrowheads that you see here on my right, and they were real craftsmen that developed them. They're really not arrowheads, these are atlatl points. That was the throwing stick that they used to kill a big woolly mammoth and those larger animals with. They also used the bones in the toes of the deer, and they were utilized for fish hooks and so forth. They used the horn for the handles of their tools, like this flint knife. They used the sinew and the rawhide to bind them or haft them to the points there. He was quite a craftsman in stone. They made the granite axes and the celts, which were simply rubbed and pecked with other stones. And they made all types of pottery from the clays and the mussel shells ground up that they had available to them. So early man was quite ingenious. He developed many things, and a lot of things we're still learning that he was able to utilize in the land that he lived and at the time he lived. Y'all folks stay tuned again next week for some more Outdoors with Archie Phillips.
Preserve that memory for a lifetime with a quality mount from Archie and Bubba Phillips Taxidermy. With over 35 years experience leading the way in the development of the most modern and innovative methods of taxidermy, Archie and Bubba Phillips can have your trophy back to you in 4 to 5 weeks. Judged by fellow taxidermists across the nation in national competitions, Archie and Bubba Phillips have brought back the ribbons of quality. From your first fish to your best fish, we can preserve your outdoor experience for generations to come. The largest freshwater studio for over 25 years ensures you the most accurate recreation of color. Durable, long-lasting color and accuracy is our goal through the development of superior quality materials to give you those big bellies for bass and the convenience of home delivery.
Freeze your fish solid in a plastic garbage bag, roll them up in 1 inch or 2 of newspaper, put them in a cardboard box, and send him UPS on Monday. Outside the southeastern United States, send him second day air.
Well, I like going hunting, just me, my hound, and my gun. Chasing them deer, rabbit, and squirrel, now that's my kind of fun. I like going fishing too, I'll go on any whim. Looking for the big bass, the crappie, and the brim. Just give me a wide open field to all crew. Give me an ocean so deep. I want to ride the longest river in the world, or maybe climb the highest mountain peak. Like going down to the fishing hole, my buddies and me and my old cane pole. Bait them hooks and wet them lines, it's a life I love so fine. It's almost supper time, you'd think the world was mine.
And now for today's outdoor adventure, here's Archie Phillips.
Folks, I'm with Kenny Berry and Randall Jones up in Fackler, Alabama, and their specialty is Indian technology, including the hunting and the bows and the arrows and everything they hand build just like it was done thousands of years ago.
All right, Archie, the most favored wood here on the North American continent today, and even in times past, was the Osage orange. Most people call it hedge apple, some people call it bodock.
Mock orange.
Mock orange is another name for it.
It's one with them great big old green things look like a grapefruit.
That's right.
Green grapefruit.
That's right, and these trees are in the same family as the mulberry tree, and the mulberry was also one of the favored woods here in the east. This was mainly out west, though, because it wasn't that common here in the east back in early times. But as soon as you find you a nice straight section of Osage orange, which is hard to find in here, we've already got this log split in half, and we're going to show the folks how early man used stone and antler wedges to split these things with. You just have to split you out a good quarter of this and try to miss all these knots in here as best you can. This has got 2 big prominent knots in it, and we're going to try to run our split this way, and we'll get our bow out of this section right here.
Splits right on just like a steel. Look at that thing opening up right there.
And we'll use the stone one here too.
Reckon they used the end of their axe to do that with sometimes too.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
Their salps I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Just kind of get it going, then they could just. But that, of course, that works about as good as anything you could use, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty nice piece right
here
there.
We've missed our knots. We've got a
Beautiful.
nice straight section here. It's got a slight twist to it, but we'll take that out with heat later.
Okay. So that gets us started. All right, now where do we go from there?
Well, we got to debark this now and get the bark off of it.
All right, now what would you use for something like that? Would you use your stone tools?
Well, yeah, we'd go to our celt for that, and we've got one hafted in here. And we just start down here at the bottom, and it comes out.
Now those were in by pressure anyway, wasn't they?
That's right, they're pressure fitted in here.
And you just take that outer bark off, huh?
Yeah, now a lot of early bow makers, they believe, left this sapwood that we're exposing here. They believe they left that sapwood on.
Why do you think they did that?
Just extra lamination, since the sapwood is more fibrous and a lot more resilient and, you know, stretchy than this old tough hardwood is. It gave it more of a
So
more of a
they
snap.
just slicked that bark off in, didn't they?
Right, that's all they did, slick this bark off, scraped it down smooth, and then all they had to remove was wood off the back of the bow.
All right, let's take the next step up.
All right, now Archie, the main thing we want to do is I'm going to remove all this sapwood. But you can see these annual growth rings in this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we got 2 good thick ones here, and we got 2 good thick ones here. I'm going to take this down to this particular growth ring right here, this nice thick one. So we're going to remove these rings here.
Okay.
And we're going to get this down the complete length of this bow stave and we're only going to expose down to this one growth ring, and it'll be that growth ring the complete length of this thing.
All the way down. That's
Yeah.
the one you want.
That'll keep it from splitting. That means we got one continuous layer of wood the full length of this thing.
I got you. Okay, now Randall, when they got it roughed out, now what kind of instruments did they use to finish it on out? I mean, Kenny.
They'd use any kind of a scraper, Archie. It was made out of flint, of course, because that was the sharpest tools they had known to them. And they would just try to rough off these corners after they got it down to the growth ring they wanted. Then they just removed and smoothed the back of these things. And you can see that flint works just like a plane. We're getting just what we'd be getting off with a spoke shave
man,
here.
That does a fine job.
Yeah. And we're just going to smooth it off and get all these splintered areas. But
Well, now the nice thing about these flint tools, a lot of people thought them Indians didn't have anything sharp, but here's a pair that's the hafted end of a deer horn. But the reason for that is when that thing would go dull, he'd just sit right back, put that on a piece of leather, and pow, 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 just like that.
Right.
And he could resharpen this one, turn around and take the end of that one, and resharpen this one right here with his flint knapping. That's his flint knapping tools, and he's sharp, ready to go again.
That's
Sit right
right.
there and start whacking
That's
away,
right.
right?
exactly right.
That is, and you just get it to the shape you want it then, don't
Right. This is the longest time consuming part, but you got to be real careful in how much wood you take off of here. Of course, you'll be testing it and bending it and make sure it's getting the right bend and both limbs are bending evenly.
Now, this is
Which
the
is-
natural color of this wood
Right.
too, ain't it?
Yeah. Which the modern day bowyers, they call this getting it bend right. They call that tillering.
Tailoring.
Tillering. Yeah. You tiller your bow.
Well, you know, I can't understand why they like this Osage orange. Every piece I ever seen had great big knots in it.
Yeah, but these knots don't matter.
It don't matter?
As long as you keep these knots away from the very edge of your bow and you don't cut through them.
Okay.
Now, we broke a rule here close to the tip of this, but since we're not going to be getting as much bend in the very last 6 or 8 inches of this as we are, here's our main stress points here.
I see.
So we made sure that we left this knot in, and it's okay if we got a hump or a bump on here.
All right.
We're not trying to make this look like a factory job.
Let's say 10 hours later, or about 100 hours later, what do we got then?
Okay, then we've got our finished bow. Of course, this one's a bit shorter than that long bow we're working on. But this one tops out, and we've got it all smoothed down, nice and pretty, and we've got it oiled down with rendered beaver fat out of a beaver's tail. And that's going to waterproof it for us. And we've got it wrapped up here on the ends with sinew, because you can see we had a lateral crack or a longitudinal crack starting in this one. But we wrap it up with that sinew and we glue it with our hide glue, and it ain't going nowhere. I'll
Okay.
never worry about it. And this little bow right here shoots at 70 pounds at a 28-inch draw.
That's beautiful. Watch this now. All right. This bow here. Now, I want to touch on the sinew. Now, this right here is not wood, this right here. Now, let's explain to them what sinew is now.
Okay, now sinew is a tendon that lays right on top of the tenderloins in a deer's back. You got one on each side of the back.
That's what
It
we'd
runs-
call gristle, ain't it?
Right, it runs from the shoulder to the hip, all the way down any vertebrate's back. People's got them, deer's got them, beef has got them, pork. But you take this out and you slip a knife under it, a knife blade or any dull instrument under this, between that tenderloin and that silver skin, some people call it, and you can just slip that right off and break it off at this end, and then reach your fingers up under there and you can pull it off on this end. I wish we had an animal here we could be demonstrating that on, because it's not as hard as it sounds.
But this was their main tying stuff. wasn't
Oh, this was their duct tape. This was their string, bowstring, sewing thread. It can be boiled down to make glue. It was used to tie on arrowheads.
it? The whole bit.
Oh, yeah,
All
it
right,
was
peel a
used-
piece of that off there. Let's get started on something. Let them see what it does.
Okay, now to break this up into fibers, you can see it looks like that old strapping tape that you have to tape your packages up.
Just wind it up, right?
Yeah, you're just gonna twist it, and we're gonna separate the fibers in this. Now the little bit of membrane that's left on here, we're not gonna throw that away. That's gonna go in our next pot of glue.
So we ain't waste nothing.
No, we ain't gonna throw none of this away. That membrane will make glue, and all the little pieces of this that we think is too short to use, it'll make glue. So we'll get under here.
All right, now you get to, now let them see this right here now. Here's your good stuff under this membrane, right there. Looks like monofilament. In fact, they used it for fishing cord, didn't they?
Yeah, they used it for anything. This is the strongest natural fiber in the universe.
Sinew.
Yeah, this is it. This is the strongest natural fiber known to man.
Okay.
And that's it. And what we'll do, we'll turn this over here, reach right here in the middle, and we'll just pull it from the middle out to this end, peel it off that way.
And you just keep peeling that down, can't you?
Yeah, you can get that down as fine as you want.
If that ain't monofilament used hundreds of years ago, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And this strong.
That's
too.
exactly. Yeah,
Look at
one
that.
little strand like that. Well, you're a fisherman. You pull that till you break it, and you tell me what pound test that might be, if you can break it.
I don't believe I can break it. It's got to be exceeding 20. I can't break it. And I mean,
That's thin.
that's thinner than the 20. So they just tie a knot in each of these ends, get them some bone fish hooks, and you can keep peeling that thread. Look at that.
Oh yeah, it'll go finer down for bead work and porcupine quill work if you want to get artistic with it.
That's beautiful. Okay.
All right, now what we make our glue out of course, here we've got coarsely chopped up deer hooves that I just took my hatchet here and just chopped the toes up. And you can get them dew claws out if you want to. Glue claws is a better name for them because that's what you can make with them. Right here, I've got the veins of a turkey feather. That's protein too. Anything that's protein, these little bits of sinew and tendon that are still in here, you can throw those in there and take your knife and whittle off all this cartilage. Put that in there.
This is our raw material for our glue.
Yeah, this is our raw material for our hide glue. And here's some more feather quills. Scales off of turtle shells will work. If you got cow horns laying around, you scrape them and get scrapings off of them. Now these are hide scrapings that came off this piece of deer skin here, where you can just scrape that up, or if you wanted to, you could just throw this whole thing in the pot, cook it down. Here's some bits of rawhide, and when this cooks down, you
Looks
want
like gravy, don't it?
Yeah, and you just cook it down to a good molasses-like consistency. And the test I use for it is when I can put my finger in there and get me a thin film of it, and then hold my thumb and finger together for a few seconds. And then after it starts to dry, you can see it's...
Oh, it's sticky.
Oh yeah, it's real sticky stuff. And this stuff hardens. Now, every good Indian had him a glue stick in his repair kit. He carried this with him everywhere he go because you never knew when you might stick something in. See how that's setting up?
Oh, Lord, yeah, that's good.
That's really sticky now.
Yeah.
And you just strain this off. You'll have big chunks of stuff left in there, but you just strain that off, and you take your stick and dip it in there and twirl it on. Let it cool, and you keep re-dipping it. But that'll
Get
dry as hard as a rock. When you get ready to use it again, you can either pop it in a cup of warm water and reconstitute it, or put it in your mouth.
And just lick it up.
Mm-hmm. Get some of it dissolved on there, and then smear that on your air shaft or whatever it is that you're trying to glue something to.
Yeah, I got you. Just use it like an all-day sucker.
Oh yeah, and it's pure protein. It's just made from things with protein in it.
Randall, would you do that?
I don't think.
So that's your glue.
But that's the fact of the matter, though.
Right,
That's what they did.
Yeah, these is all byproducts here of the deer.
In other words,
You know.
they didn't waste nothing,
Right,
did
you know, things you'd think they was going to throw away. Well, no, they'd boil it down and make glue out of
they? All right, now, what are we going to do with this glue?
it. We're going to haft on arrowheads, feathers on arrow shafts. We're going to use it to strengthen bow strings.
This is the universal product of the Indian culture for anything they made, just about
Anything they wanted to glue together, this did it right
That's
here.
it. All right, let's see what kind of things you can do.
Okay.
All right, now what we got going here now, Kenny?
Now, Archie, we're going to do the thing that especially the Western Indian tribes did. It wasn't common practice here in the East. But to keep brittle bows from breaking and to add extra strength to them, kind of like adding a fiberglass lamination, they would take bundles of this extra, just strong sinew, and they would dip them in glue, that prepared glue that we've got, and get them things nice and coated with glue, and they'd put a little coat of glue on their bow. They'd overlap over here about 2 or 3 inches on the back, and they'd come down the front of this thing the full length of it and get a good coat of glue on there, and they'd take that sinew and they'd start, and then they'd glue that down the full length of this bow.
Nice and flat, isn't it?
Nice and flat. They'd just flatten it out as they went. And they'd add a little more glue down through here, Add a little more glue on top of it. Just like adding fiberglass lamination. They do that all the way
Same
across
thing.
here, 2 or 3
Same
coats.
thing as modern day fiberglass lamination.
That's right. Now the ancient Turks, they put as much as 1/16 of an inch of sinew on their bows.
And you just carry that procedure right on
Right,
down, right?
you right on down and
All
we'll
right,
set
now
that one down.
I want the folks to see now. Here it is right here, looks like he started. Now see you put a band around it right there.
Right, that's mostly to hold it down in
Hold
the back
it down.
right there.
And then just come on down with it and you put 2 layers and a thick layer across here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that what pull on this bow is this?
Well, this thing went from a 35 pound to a 50 pound.
To
I
a
added
50
15 pounds of pull to it by adding that sinew on there.
That's great. Kenny, this is an arrowhead that you flint napped for this shaft here.
That's right.
All right, how'd you get this groove in there like that?
Okay, that's a pretty simple operation that some fellas out west were kind enough to show us. Here, I'll just use this unpeeled sapling here. Of course, we'll use our stone knife, and if we can get down here on a knee.
Here's a nice sharp one, a smaller one there you might want to use.
Okay. All right. Now we'll go ahead and we saw us in a notch here. You come around to the opposite side and saw you in another notch. Now we'll come back about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch on the what we'll call the third side of our shaft here, and we'll go the opposite side of it and cut another one in. Now, what we're going to do is break from this notch back to that one this way. We can get her to split. There it went, it released. It would look better if we had the bark off this, but then we turn it over and we're going to break the other one back to the other notch. Now then, that'll get our bark out of our way where we can see. Then the rest of that's broke out sideways.
Look at that. Isn't that slick?
And there's your notch right there. Okay, now here's one we got in a prepared shaft.
I got you.
And you just slip your arrowhead in that. I keep setting these things down and I'm losing them. Oh, here it is on the ground. Okay. Now we've got our glue stick all moistened in our mouth. And we smear some glue on this point. And we place it in the notch. And then we're going to take our sinew thread that we had soaking in our mouth there, and we can divide it up just however fine or however coarse we want it. And people always wonder why them little notches were in those arrowheads. Well, right there's what for.
And boy, it just
See,
pulls
that
them
goes-
right on down, don't it?
Yeah, and as this sinew dries now, it's going to be just like shrink wrap.
Well, I'll just be.
And you can cross it over this way and over that way.
Now, as you go around the front, then you go around the back, and then you crisscross, right?
That's right. Then, or either way you want to do it. Now, you can do, that's all up to the individual. That's just the way I like to do it. I like to crisscross it. Then I like to lay on a finer thread of sinew and taper this back, because you want this thing, if you shoot an animal with it, you want it to go in nice and smooth and taper back. And another thing, once this arrow gets inside an animal, then the moisture and the heat inside that animal make the sinew swell back again. It'll be harder for it to pull out.
Well, I'll just be.
Then you take your glue stick, soften it up, put a dab of glue right there on your sinew ends, stick them down real good, and set that aside, and in 15 minutes you won't be able to move it.
That is outstanding, and that's the way they did it.
That's the way they did it.
All right, now what about the other end? You got to do something to it, too.
Yeah, we've got to put the feathers on there, so we've got to sit down here and split the feathers, and we'll get right to that.
All right, just show how we can show on this. You got 3 pieces, right?
Right.
All right, then right here, you do the same thing you did on the front, right?
That's exactly right. You pull these veins down off that center part. They'll peel right off there.
And stick it right there where that one's
Right,
at.
that one will go there. And then you've got to cut down or tear off these top ones, whichever way you want to do it, if you want to trim them off or if you want to tear them off. And then that'll leave you just a little bit of feather to do the same thing there.
Sinew that and glue it down.
Stick it with a spot of glue and then sinew it down real good.
And you got it.
And do the same thing on that.
You don't worry about this middle.
No, you don't have to worry
All
about
right,
it.
Kenny, how effective would that bow and arrow be on an Alabama white-tailed deer?
Well, I wouldn't shoot one more than 30 or 40 yards.
I don't know many people that shoot them with these modern bows.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, in these woods we got up here, you're not going to get longer than a 20-yard shot anyway.
So in other words, your range, but you got the power there to do it.
Oh yeah, this thing will probably deliver this thing close to 200 yards.
200 yards.
Yeah, that's distance.
But your
shooting.
pull, what pound are you pulling on that bow?
Well, if I pull this arrow all the way full draw, which I can't do with this bow, you don't pull it. You know, your arrow's only supposed to be as half as long as your bow anyway, or you're talking about breakage being possible.
Yeah.
But even at full draw, 24 inches, this thing's going to deliver about 60, 65 pound range.
Okay, give us a flick through there. Very good, very good. Kenny, all the tools and equipment that the Indian needed to hunt with was virtually within that deer or right out there for him to go get.
That's right.
Improvise and come back. And we sometimes get a little cocky, I think, with all our modern equipment. These old boys knew what they was doing, didn't they?
Oh, exactly.
In other words, they knew the skills of the bow, they knew the skills of arrow making and the glues and all of these components. And when you put them all together, you come up with a very, very effective weapon for taking the deers and whatever animals they wanted to use.
Yes, indeed. And it's like one Indian friend of mine out west told me, he said the strength of one deer was used to get another deer.
Get another.
The antlers to split out the log to make the bow, the sinew, the glue,
everything.
all of that, everything.
That was great.
Outdoors with Archie Phillips is now available on video cassette, like Volume 29, Jerry Simmons, the White-tailed Predator. Hunting the white-tailed deer is a lifelong obsession of Jerry Simmons. This video shows you how he has developed a most productive method of stalking and predicting the habits of deer. Jerry shows his equipment and identifies the food of the whitetail. Go with Jerry as he makes the shot on the South's most sought-after game. So ask for Volume 29, Jerry Simmons, the White-tailed Predator, at your local video store.
Well, I like going hunting, just me, my hound, and my gun. Chasing them deer, rabbit, and squirrel, now that's my kind of fun. I like going fishing too, I'll go on any whim, looking for the big bass, the crappie, and the brim. Just give me a wide open field to walk through. Give me an ocean so deep. I want to ride the longest river in the world, or maybe climb the highest mountain peak. Like going down to the fishing hole, my buddies and me and my old cane pole, bait them hooks and wet them lines. It's a life I love so fine. It's almost supper time, you'd think the world was mine.
And now for today's outdoor adventure, here's Archie Phillips.
Well, folks, the early Indians or early people that roamed around this planet, they had to depend on animals, plants, and fire to survive. And we've got some folks with us here today, Randall Jones, who is an excellent fire builder, and Kenny Berry back here, who is pretty good on most anything to do with bow making and arrows and flint making and how they did it. And they're going to share their expertise with us today on how the Indians made it out there in the early times. All right, Randall, we got a mullein plant that's nearly dead here now. What about the mullein?
Well, the mullein is this is the first year plant, and it'll throw up a stalk the second year that it's alive, but it's got this nice velvety big green leaf that are, it's good for making a tea out of. Some people smoke the leaves to get the mucus and to clear up congestion. It gets the mucus flowing so you can
Like,
get it out
like
of your
people
body.
use humidifiers today. That's what the Indians and all used back in them days.
Yeah.
All right, now right behind you here, explain to them about this one now.
Well, this is a second-year plant, and it's got, it'll have, this is the flower stalk, and have greenish yellow flowers on it.
Okay.
And this is where all the seeds are now. Some of them may fall out if you shake it. But this stalk here is got a real big pithy core in it, and it's good for making fires with a hand drill.
Okay, well, let's pull that up and take it with us.
Okay. Crack it open like that.
So that's one of your better fire building.
Yeah, mullen's probably the best you can get.
Okay. All right, now right in, I'm gonna hold the mullen
Okay.
right here in front of us now. What's the deal on this plant?
Now this is thistle. Thistle is also edible when it's at a younger stage than this, or when it's green. But the flower heads here are good for wrapping fletching darts for blowguns.
Blowgun darts. That's when you want them when they're real powdery, right? I mean, real
Right.
fluffed out.
Exactly. Not when they're opened and the down's going everywhere, but when it's right before that time.
It'll be in a bulb, and they'll be purple, right?
Uh-huh.
I got you. So this is gonna be our fire stick right here, right?
Uh-huh.
All right, now what we got right here, Kenny?
This is your wing down, and as you can see, it's got these little wing-like growths on the bark down through here, and once again, they grow out to the side, and you can get your bark for your cordage right down either the top or the bottom of this, and it'll strip off of here, and it's not quite as good on these older growths like this. Let me pick that up. See, it just ran just a little way, but you can get these young canes of it before it gets too big and gnarly like this is, and it'll strip off there in one
Make
good
you
piece.
some good cordage. What
Yeah.
else is this thing used for?
Well, it's the wood is good for bow drill fire making sets for the drill and the fireboard, and for our hand drill, they make really good fireboards.
All right, now what have you been doing over around that cedar tree right there now?
Well, I'm gathering some tinder, and this is just the outer dead bark of the cedar. And this cedar bark makes really good tinder.
About the best, ain't it, Randy?
Yeah, if you tinder, and when you're making friction fires and making fires with the friction fire methods, your tinder is the most important ingredient, because even though you get a coal, if you don't have tinder that's able to be blown into a flame from that coal, your coal is useless. So you got to have good tinder.
And that's the best, ain't it?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Now out there, Archie, we got that big cottonwood tree growing. That's a mature cottonwood. And all along here, downwind from it is where the little saplings have sprung up, mixed in with those willows there. And I like to tell people that it's ironic that your best fire starting woods grows in these wet places, these little old swampy areas, your willows, your cottonwoods, and that's the two best woods that you got.
All right, now you're telling me that that's what the leaf off of cottonwood looks like. But what was you telling me about spring, how you can tell it?
Yeah, in the spring and summer, these things will be a real light, bright green, but these veins in here will be red, pinkish colored.
Mm-hmm.
And on these smaller trees, they'll be great big. These leaves will be 3 or 4 times that big.
They'd be that big?
On the little ones. Yeah, you know, on like some varieties of oak, you'll see them little small oak trees with huge leaves on them. Well, they do the same way. And this cottonwood, so-called because it's so soft. You can see where I took my thumbnail there, and you can just make an imprint in it. And I was told when I first started doing friction fire that that's your first test. If you can make a print in it with your thumb, then that wood's soft enough to be suitable for fire making.
Okay.
And this is a dead limb off that mature tree, and that's the best place to find them. Find you a mature tree and just look around the bottom of it, and good dead dry wood has fell off of it.
And the willows are good too, right?
Willows are good too.
Okay. All right, Kenneth, what you got right there now?
All right, we got a willow tree growing down here. Of course, this has been pruned several times, and which is all the more better. It's sent off even more shoots, and it gives us more stuff to work with. Now, we've got part of it here that's dead and dried out, and see, this willow will naturally just split in half down there to give you a good fireboard.
Uh-huh.
you know, a flat side already done for you, and or you can keep it round and use your fire drill. This is also a good friction firewood, and we'll use that later.
See, this is the yucca, and this is the long yucca stalk that comes off of the plant. And the stalk here has these white petaled flowers that are edible. They have a bitter sweet taste to them, but you can just pick them off the plant and eat them.
That's when they're, at what stage?
That's when they're flowering.
When they're flowering.
Little flower
Okay.
petals. But the stalk here, when the stalk has died, is a great fireboard for friction fires, and it's also a great drill.
So it'll do both of them, right?
For hand drill, everything. I mean, this is almost the best stuff you could get. For a hand drill, it'd be up there with mullein.
Okay. All right, we're gonna just pull these out, cut these out, right? Is that what we're gonna do with them?
Yeah, you can just cut that off down at the bottom down there.
Now this is some of the cedar bark we got, and this is some of the downy seed heads that we just pushed into a ball, and we added some dog bane in there because this is good tender material too. And we'll just stick that in the middle of all this cedar bark because it's like when you start a fire, it's the same with this. You start out with something real small, and then gradually you get bigger and coarser and stuff like that.
Come on up with it, right?
Yeah, okay.
All right.
And like I said before, this your tinder bundle is really the most important thing that you have. If you get a coal and you stick it in here and your tinder's no good, you can't blow it into a flame. Everything that you've done is useless.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to go on to the hand drill. And all you really need is you look for a stalk. Plant stalk is what I usually use. It has a pithy core in it, but the outside of the stalk is strong enough when you drill it, it won't bust on you or come apart.
I got you.
Okay, this is mullein. This is mullein we showed earlier. And this is a yucca drill. And this is a thistle drill. Okay. I'm gonna do a fire or get a coal with a mullein in a few
That's
minutes.
your favorite, isn't it?
Yeah, mullein's just, you can't beat it.
Okay.
You can't beat it.
All right.
But this is you just go off and break a limb of willow, and you could just use the willow limb as it is as a fireboard. But as you see, it'll wobble, and most people have trouble with that. Okay, so what you do is flatten down both sides, and a lot of Indians did that. They flattened the sides down. They're Indians in South America and in the Southwest, all their fireboards were pretty much flattened. Okay, and you don't need a knife. You can just get a piece of flint or a flint flake, and you start making a little hole up here in the board like this, so your drill won't slip around. And then you'll drill with your drill in the hole and create a little depression. Okay, and after that you can get your little piece of flint or flake or even a piece of sandstone and just saw your notch in there. Now you put a notch in the depression you made because that's where all the heat is going to concentrate, because that's where all the powder is going to concentrate that grinds off from the board and your drill. So you just cut a little notch in there, and it's actually just a little line going in there. You don't want to make it too big because sometimes these pithy plant stalks do have a brittle outside, and it'll catch and just splitter it apart.
I see.
Because you're turning it so fast and hard.
You got it like you want it now?
Yeah. You don't really, on a hand drill, it's different from a bow drill, I think, and then you don't need a notch going in all the way because of that, what I just said.
You just need an escape route for the powder to
for
go
the
out.
meal.
I see.
Right.
See, all the other notches in there aren't really that deep.
I see.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And right now, try to get one going with.
Now you left here. You got a little chip of wood there, so you're gonna.
Right. If you were, you want to keep your pieces that you're going to make the fire with off any damp area, and this ground's really damp, so what you could do is get a piece of bark and pull it off a tree and use it.
Lay it in there. I
Right.
got you.
Okay, I'm gonna use this piece when the coal falls there to transfer it into the tinder.
I got you.
Because when you have a little board and you have a big tinder bundle, the
You got
board's
trouble.
gonna wobble.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. And when you drill, with the drill, you're trying to, you want to apply downward pressure and you want to keep the drill spinning at the same time. And you got to remember, most people have a dominant hand, and so they'll just use the hand that's the dominant with them, like they're right-handed or left-handed. You got to remember, do both hands.
Both
Because
hands.
you'll lose a rotation. See if you just go like this.
I see.
It gets it going faster. And what I try to do is lean down on the drill with my body weight, let my body weight handle the downward pressure, and leaving my arms, my hands free to spin the drill. Okay, we'll just do it right now.
Okay.
See what happens.
Oh, that's good smoke there.
I think there's a coal there already. Yeah, there's a coal.
Randall can get a hand drill fire quicker than I can get one with a bow
You
drill.
can do. That's faster than I can get one with a bow.
And that's the coal right
All
there.
Transfer that dude.
And you'll leave it alone and let it grow a little bit.
Yeah, it'll like
So,
congeal.
Yeah. And if you take it out right away, the coal will probably break apart
I see.
and fall out on you. But you'll stick it in there and tap it in there and cradle it like a baby. You want to make it grow, so blow a little soft on it.
There you go. There's your
There's
fire.
your fire right there.
There's your fire. Fire all over you. Okay, now this fire method is called the bow and spindle method. We cut the little groove in the side right here, and you start your hole. Now this fireboard's probably good for a dozen more fires, and it'll finally wear out through that hole just like that and did. And I'll start another hole there and right on down through there. Got a thing goes in your hand. The Indians used all sort of things. They used a piece of a bone. They used calcite stone, different things up in there. You don't want friction here. You want it right here. So we're going to set up down here. Got the same cedar tinder that we had before, and we simply put the bow in the groove, and you could have a little tree limb, or you could use some kind of your buckskin that you had prepared or whatever. Spindle goes on top, hand right here, and then we'll just start our action right here. And the coals are building up in the sides there. I like to pump it till I get a good green looking smoke in there.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, we got it. I tap it right into the tinder. There's your fire. And that's the spindle method. And that would simply be thrown up under your any of your fire, and should come on up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And now the reason for the friction fires, flint and steel, you hear about making a fire with flint and steel and other kind of things, but you had to have some modern day man's tools, which would be the steel,
Right.
to make it happen. And with this way, you can always start with nothing, boom, you got a fire.
That's right.
I'm gonna burn this little piece of cloth right here for the next step here, which is after the Indian came in contact with the white man, he developed another fire method, We're going to show you here in just a minute. What I'm doing is charring this cloth right here. Get it good and charred. That could be any kind of cotton-based type of cloth. And then I'm simply going to put it out till it's all the way out. Then we would take just a simple piece of black flint and a little more tinder. And the way I do that is, hold that for a minute.
Okay.
It's just almost like a cigarette lighter. You just put your flint right up under your finger right there, and you put your flint right here, and you just strike off a, there, I got one little spark down in there. I just take my tinder. And there's your fire. Now, the nice part about the flint and steel fire is this. Once you had steel and cotton products, you could take your tinder, your flint and your steel, and your cotton, put them in a little tinder box. That's what they used to call them, tinder boxes. And they would, that would be your fire making kit, be just like that right there. And then you could, anytime you needed a fire, all you had to do was just get it out. And I can't even get the stuff out. It burns so nicely. But you see how quick it will spread on on that real good charge. It won't even go out. Look at that.
Yeah, or a piece of punky wood is what I keep in mind.
Punky wood.
Yeah, punky wood.
And then
works.
there's your fire kit. And this came into being probably around 1700 in this country. Well, folks, you've seen one of the most difficult processes that I've ever seen on fire building is the drill type fire building. And Kenny, you boys do seminars and lectures and all that for people, and we're gonna have your name and phone number here at the end of the show, so any of them that wants to get up with you. Y'all about the most knowledgeable people I've ever been with on how the early men did it. You've been at it a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, we've done a lot of research, a lot of trial and error on this, and a lot of traveling, a lot of working on it, but we'd love to spread it around and teach it to anybody who would like to learn it.
Y'all sure excellent on the cordages and the foods and the fire building skills and the airheads and just everything. And of course we got a fire here going. We've got a spark right there, and Randy knows his business with that thing.
Oh yeah, he's good with that.
I can do it with a bow, but this is the most difficult of all right there is getting it with a bow. And you folks have seen it done. Now you hear people say, well, you know, you always hear about starting a fire with 2 sticks. Well, there you see it right here. You've got a mullein.
Thistle.
Now this is thistle, okay? We got a thistle, and we got the willow fireboard. There's the spark right there, and Randy gonna drop it right in his cedar, little cedar. We call it bird's nest or your tinder pile, and have your fire up there. So, you know, let's think about some of our folks years ago and how they made it. And you know, we thought it was an impossible how they survived, but they were very ingenious people, wasn't they?
Oh yeah, it's still possible to do it today.
Yeah, and you know, it's good to go back and get with people like y'all that are skilled to show the young folks and the older folks how people made it in the state of Alabama or anywhere else in this country. And there's your fire and there's your smoke, and there it is.
That's it.
That's the first one I've ever seen built with a hand bow. I've seen them in the movies, but that's the first I've ever seen built. And folks, y'all stay tuned again next week for some more Outdoors with Archie Phillips.
Outdoors with Archie Phillips is now available on video cassette, like Volume 26, Black Powder Hunting. Relive the experience of your forefathers by experiencing hunting with the old style. Hunting with a black powder shotgun is an enjoyable way to put a little variety in your hunting style. You learn how to load the old smoke pole and how to anticipate the delayed action. This video includes hunting of quail, squirrel, and rabbit. So ask for Outdoors with Archie Phillips, Volume 26, Black Powder Hunting.
Well, I like going hunting, just me, my hound, and my gun. Chasing them deer, rabbit, and squirrel, now that's my kind of fun. I like going fishing too, I'll go on any whim, looking for the big bass, the crappie, and the brim. Just give me a wide open field to walk through. Give me an ocean so deep. I want to ride the longest river in the world, or maybe climb the highest mountain peak. Like going down to the fishing hole, my buddies and me and my old cane pole, bait them hooks and wet them lines. It's a life I love so fine. It's almost supper time, you'd think the world was mine.
And now for today's outdoor adventure, here's Archie Phillips.
Folks, today we're going to show you some of the things that the early people or Indians used, how they used plants to make cordage and all the kind of things they needed ropes and things for, and also how they made their fires with friction using different methods and different kinds of woods and all that kind of thing, and also some of the very unique things that were found in nature that they utilized for their weapons, which was, in one case, this little small dart that they used on small animals and birds up to the size of a turkey, and blowguns to shoot them with. Got Randall Jones here with us, who has been a nature teacher for years and also has taught over at the Oak Mountain State Park and different places around the country. He's an expert on this, and Kenny Barry back here, he's also with us on this show, and we're gonna get into this thing and have a good time.
Now this is thistle. The flower heads here are good for wrapping fletching darts or blowguns.
Blowgun darts. That's when you want them when they're real powdery, right? I mean, real fluffed out.
Exactly. Not when they're opened and the down's going everywhere, but when it's right before that time.
It'll be in a bulb, and they'll be purple, right?
Uh-huh.
I got you. So this is going to be our fire stick right here, right?
Uh-huh.
All right, now what we got right here, Kenny?
All right, here's a young thistle just come up.
All right, let's get them together. Let's get them together so they can see one and then the other.
Right.
Oh, that's real good. There.
Now, Randall, you can tell them
Is
what.
that edible about right along in there, Randall?
Yeah.
That's about the stage you eat it at.
Uh-huh. Just, you take off the little spines so they wouldn't stick you, which isn't that hard to do.
Now, is it kind of like dandelion where you can eat the heart of it, sort of like an artichoke heart?
No, you really don't want to do that.
Just that part right there.
And
Just the greens.
Yeah, mainly the stalk is what you're looking for. You can eat the young leaves like this because they're really not up to a sticking stage.
Right.
Yeah.
But the stalk, when it gets a little about this high,
I see.
it's just like celery, and it's contains a lot of water in it. So if you're real thirsty, it'll help quench your thirst. But also, when the stalk gets up a little higher than this, it's also a good hand drill to start a fire.
On the thistle too. So you got two drills, the thistle and the mullet. All right, let's go get something else.
Okay.
What we got here, Archie, is a slippery elm.
Here's a leaf, just like the American elm, but it's got a bigger leaf, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when it's in this stage. Now, this is just a young sapling here. And the county has come along and they trim these things down, and I can come back time after time and get the bark off these. It's got good, the characteristics of it is the limbs only grow out two sides. They grow out the lateral sides of these stalks so that you can come along with a knife or your thumbnail or whatever, and you can get that bark started peeling up there.
Look at that.
And it'll come off
Look at that. Look
in
at
a single strip
Holy mackerel.
and run out. And it's good and tough as it is. But once you cord that together, you make it 10 times stronger.
You braid it up, right?
Right, yeah,
Okay.
we're just gonna twist it and braid it.
Jerk another
Now, I can get another strip off the bottom of this, because like I said, the leaves grow out the sides of it,
Okay.
and we're not gonna kill the plant by doing this.
Okay.
we'll leave the bark on the sides there, and that'll support this plant.
And you just come up one side and then don't right on up to the...
Yeah, you get it off the top and the bottom,
And then you go to the next one, right?
right, and then go on to your next tree.
Now, all right. Now, what else is this thing used for, Randy?
Well, the inner bark of the slippery elm is good for digestive problems. If you have diarrhea or you have trouble holding your food in your stomach, it'll wipe that out real quick.
What would you do, make a little tea out of it?
Yeah, you'd make a little tea. It can get sort of thick, you know, because it's sort of pasty when you mix it with water. So it's good to heat your water.
There's your
and
inner bark right there.
make your tea, and then you want to pound it up and make it into a powder.
I see.
And then,
in other words, this is right under the bark. It's that next layer down.
Right.
Right before you get to the hard part of the wood, the
Right.
inner bark.
Yeah, you'll want to dry it out, and it'll turn a tan like this color on your shirt right here.
And then you pound it up.
And you put it in, make it a tea, you heat your water, and put it in maybe with some honey, make it taste a little better. It has a little caramel taste to it.
I see.
And then after that, it's good to boil some more water and pour it in there again to sort of just try to dissolve it a little more, because like I said, it gets pasty.
I see.
And but it's good. It's just a good overall tonic. It really just helps your system and cleans out your system.
Good for what ails you.
That's right.
And we also need to add that the time to get it is in the spring, early summer, or late spring, early summer, or late summer, early fall, when the sap's either running up or running down. Because the sap is what you want. That's where the medicine's at, is in the sap.
All right, now show me something right quick now. What would you do with this cord now? Would you thin it down more?
No, you could take it right now and just twist it.
Turn it this way here.
Okay, Archie, the way you cord this is you'd fold it not quite in half, so you wouldn't splice the same. If you wanted to make a longer cord, you wouldn't splice it in the same place. See, I'd make a splice here, but it wouldn't be a splice on the other side.
Take an extra piece and put in here, and you just continue right on. And
it wouldn't be a weak spot on both sides.
I got you. Okay.
And what you do is you twist it in sort of opposite directions till it kinks like that. See that kink?
Yeah.
And then you'll twist it. This group of fibers, which all this is just some fibers that are mashed together at the right now.
Yeah.
But you twist it, turn these fibers away from you, and put it over in the opposite direction. And it'll catch on the other group, on the other side. And you do the same, and you just keep doing that until you're finished with your little cord.
Now you can take these cords and double the cords.
Right.
You can take 3 strands of this and put it together and make another cord, right?
Right.
All right, now what's the uses of all this now? What would all the uses of this be? What's a good looking cord right there?
Yeah, that looks good.
It makes a nice little 2-ply rope.
Yeah. Anything, you know, for
What
binding.
do you think, 25-pound pull?
Hey, I've tied my dog in the truck with elm bark
Have you?
when she kept jumping out. And I didn't even cord it though. I just stripped it off, tied it around her neck, tied her in the truck with it.
That's good. That's good emergence for hunting folks. There.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just make your own little cord, tie your dog up. All right, name some other things Indians used it for.
Well, you know, the slippery elm, they'd separate the fibers even more than this, and they could, you know, make clothing out of it and stuff like
Wood,
that.
do you think they did?
Yeah.
I'm sure they did. They used mulberry bark a lot.
Yeah,
For
they
clothing.
Around,
Yeah.
And just make little,
like little threads.
and then they would weave it,
Yeah, make little mats like.
make little mats.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is excellent. All right, and would they use it for? They use it for anything to do with hanging stuff and just anything you need a piece of string.
Yeah,
utility
lashing things
uses,
together.
You know, everything.
Whatever we'd use rope for that they needed, they'd use rope.
Exactly.
For. I got you. Okay.
All right, Archie, here we got another species of elm, and this is your winged elm. And as you can see, it's got these little wing-like growths on the bark down through here. And once again, they grow out to the side, and you can get your bark for your cordage right down either the top or the bottom of this. And it'll strip off of here, and it's not quite as good on these older growths like this. Let me pick that up. See, it just ran just a little way, but you can get these young canes of it before it gets too big and gnarly like this is, and it'll strip off there in one
Make
good
you
piece.
some good cordage.
Archie, right here is what we've got. people called for years Indian hemp because the Indians all over the United States knew this as their favorite cordage plant. And of course it's called dogbane by most people. But this is the very best that I know of.
You're gonna pull it,
I'm gonna break it.
break it off.
Yeah, I don't want to pull it so the root will grow back next year. And I'll hand it to Randall there.
Here's
And,
another one right here by
yeah.
Randall.
Yeah, we got one. Now, here's a small one right here in front of me.
All right, now, Kenny, you said that this dogbane, when it's green, is poison.
Yeah, it's deadly poisonous to cattle and other animals like that. That's why farmers have tried so hard to eradicate this stuff around here, and probably in most parts of the country. There's enough toxic juice in these plants to kill a cow.
Uh-huh.
And you know, I'd think whatever's gonna kill a cow probably kill a human too.
All right, now y'all smash this stuff up, right?
Yeah, but after it's dried like it is now, I mean, we're out here in January and this stuff has long been dried, and I don't think there's any danger of any sap being in it at all.
All right, now what you gonna do with it?
Now we're gonna try to split it off here. And I'm just gonna try to get that outer bark to run a little. That's not how we're gonna process it, but I'm just gonna try to.
And this
Show
is what
this
the
outer
Indian
bark.
called Indian hemp, is that right?
This is what, now I don't know what they called it, but white folks got to calling it Indian hemp because the Indians used it so much to make rope.
I see.
Same way that the whites had been using hemp to make rope.
In other words, it's called dogbane. You split it and peel it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get those fibers.
And this makes a good,
Oh yeah.
can't break it.
Yeah.
And
I'm
that's
peeling
not
them
even
out.
corded now. That's
Uh-huh.
just as it comes off the plant. Once you cord this stuff, you make it 10 times stronger.
So in other words, then you just take that and you just make your cord, put it together.
Right.
You got you a good long one started, Randall?
Yeah,
It'll
like
do.
we did with the ambar
Well,
earlier.
you can refine this even more. You want to get that red outer bark off of it.
Uh-huh.
So you can rub it through your fingers. And there are other plants that you get the fibers out just like this, like fox nettle or nettles.
Uh-huh.
And they have that bark on the outside that if you have a group of them together, you can just pound it with a wooden mallet or
I
something
see.
and get it off. But
And
it
then-
makes it, you can see it has really silky threads in there. You see the silky threads?
Uh-huh.
And it makes a pretty cordage.
Yeah,
And-
it's nice. It's
Yeah.
really nice
And it-
looking stuff.
And milkweed, which is in the same family, I think, as the dogbane, makes the fibers on it are solid white.
Uh-huh.
And when you finish cording that, it looks like you got it out of a store.
Okay, the milkweed, it grows up round and about this high?
Mm-hmm.
About 2 foot, 3 foot?
Well, now,
And you let it dry, right?
Yeah, now I know where there's some 6 feet high.
Uh-huh. And that makes good cordage, too?
Oh, yeah, it makes good cordage.
It's not quite as strong as this,
Yeah.
but it's dogbane's just like,
It's El
that's
Primo.
dessert.
yeah,
I got you.
it's the good stuff.
Yeah.
Indians had another slick trick they used. They had them a blowgun. And Randall, show us how they cleared that mess out of between these canes to make a blowgun.
Well, after they straighten it by heating and bending, they'd get some sand
Regular old sand.
and stick down in there to get that, to work that joint out. And they'd stick another piece of cane in there, twirl it around like this.
And that
Work
sand
that joint.
just worked
Grinds
the hole,
that,
right?
yeah.
And after you went through that, and they go on till they get to about, probably right there and stop, turn over and do that end, right?
Right.
And that clears it out. Okay? All right, now, on the dart, you got a cane right here, and you took your stone tool, just split it,
Uh-huh.
and you're gonna get you, what, a small piece that's gonna be this little shaft? Is that what that's gonna be?
Exactly. It's going to be
Okay.
a little slither like this cane is right here.
I see. All right, bust that on out of there. There you go. You just need just a good straight little sliver of that, don't you?
Yep.
There's your one right there.
This little one right here will do. But you want to, where's the little dart?
Here they are, right here.
Okay. You can see this dart right here has a little twist in it
Okay.
to make it sort of spiral in
Okay.
the air and get accurate. And all you have to do is put it in your mouth, twist it on this end, can twist it like that.
And it's ready to go.
You got a little split in there.
Okay.
Twist, and then you want to clean it up too. Get all that excess off of there. We have a big flint flake. We can cut a little notch in the top. Okay. Now this is, let's see. The fletching on this comes from, the Cherokees use mainly thistledown to fletch their blowgun darts.
Oh, now that's a purple, right? You take
Right,
it when
it's
it's purple.
Right.
Okay.
And the Choctaw Indians use cotton. Didn't they, like Kenny? Yeah, they use cotton. Some of them use rabbit fur, and some of them use down from ducks and birds like that.
I see.
But this is how you store them so they don't bust up and fly away. But
Because it's real fine stuff.
what you do is you get your thistle head, and you gotta get the down out, okay, and it's connected to the bottom of the flower head here. So what you do is you pull that out.
Oh my goodness, you got a handful. I'm talking
And
about a
then-
handful.
Then what you do then, you got a bunch of seeds in here. You want to get those seeds out. Like that.
You can't turn it loose now either, can you?
Now you want to pick the little flower heads out here too.
All right, now what we got here is a straight cane, and Randall's got a piece of this dog bane cordage in his mouth. That's the reason he ain't telling us why he's doing it. And he's gonna take that and he's gonna just start twisting that cord.
Yeah, I have to keep my thumb in there.
All right, let's get where we can see now. I see, you're just gathering that up as that twists, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just tightening it down. You just keep coming, you're working it into that cordage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pulling that up closer to his mouth as he goes.
Well, this one's gonna.
That's tricky right there.
Mm.
Look at that.
Well, I don't know how this one's gonna turn out. Turn out. See if you had that.
And that,
Got too
but
much.
that's the name of the game right there. You got too much at one end, but it's got to be a system. You just got to kind of get it coming on, right?
Yeah.
And then you sinew it at the bottom, is that right? Put a little glue on it, sinew it.
Well, you can get pine pitch or anything like that.
And that
see,
makes
see, all these in there didn't catch.
Yeah, but a bunch of them did though.
Yeah.
It's good enough to use. And what did you go down no further than about right there?
Well, it depends on what you're going to use them for, but yeah, you can wrap them here and just put a knot there. You really don't need to put any type of glue on there. You can just,
And you got them, okay?
yeah.
That's the way you make your dart. All right, Randall, you just drop it in and snug it up. Is that the way you do it?
Well, what they would do after they dropped it in there, they'd get some but get something that's lit, a stick or something, and burn off that fuzzy in there.
Okay.
So you're not eating thistle when you blow.
All right.
So we'll just punch this one down in there a little bit.
All right. There you go. Run that other one
That
through
one
there.
died.
Here's one with a lot of fletching. It fits it pretty good now. All right. Hold on. Let him get zeroed in on you there. Very good. Very good. All right. That's the way they did it. Very good. Anytime they had to drill a hole in anything stoner, all they used this little pump drill, held it down on the bottom with a little small stone drill. They'll just drill right through that wood right there. And these drills, there's your sinew again. There's your stone bit. These drills are still used in primitive parts of the world today. They've been out there 10,000 years. So they had all kind of ways of doing these things. Well, folks, you've seen one of the most difficult processes that I've ever seen on fire building is the drill type fire building. And Kenny, you boys do seminars and lectures and all that for people, and we're gonna have your name and phone number here at the end of the show, so any of them that wants to get up with you. Y'all about the most knowledgeable people I've ever been with on how the early men did it. You've been at it a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, we've done a lot of research, a lot of trial and error on this, and a lot of traveling, a lot of working on it, but we'd love to spread it around and teach it to anybody who would like to learn it.
Y'all sure excellent on the cordages and the foods and the fire building skills and the airheads and just everything. And of course we got a fire here going. We've got a spark right there, and Randy knows his business with that thing.
Oh yeah, he's good with that.
I can do it with a bow, but this is the most difficult of all right there is getting it with a bow. And you folks have seen it done. Now you hear people say, well, you know, you always hear about starting a fire with 2 sticks. Well, there you see it right here. You've got a mullein.
Thistle.
Now this is thistle, okay? We've got a thistle, and we got the willow fireboard. There's the spark right there. And Randy gonna drop it right in his cedar, little cedar. We call it bird's nest or your tinder pile, and have your fire up there. So, you know, let's think about some of our folks years ago and how they made it. And you know, we thought it was impossible how they survived, but they were very ingenious people, wasn't they?
Oh yeah, it's still possible to do it today.
Yeah, and you know, it's good to go back and get with people like y'all that are skilled to show the young folks and the older folks how people made it in the state of Alabama or anywhere else in this country. And there's your fire and there's your smoke, and there it is.
That's it.
That's the first one I've ever seen built with a hand bow. I've seen them in the movies, but that's the first one I've ever seen built. And folks, y'all stay tuned again next week for some more outdoors with Archie Phillips.